Hey everyone, this is Tinkering with B-Hav, and I'm B-Hav. I know I've been telling you I'm going to put together this 242 lantern for several videos now, and I've got all my parts, and I've got a little time tonight, so I'm going to get this one put back together. I'm probably not going to light it, but I am going to get it put back together, so let's get that going. So this is the fount, and you can see I polished it up really good. It started out, and it was not near this shiny. It wasn't horrible, had a little bit of oxidation on it, but it wasn't bad. You see the top there, how this was like this. It was about like that, maybe a little bit shinier than that part, but I shined up the rest of it pretty good. It turned out really well. So that's that. First thing I'm going to show you is I need to put a new seal in the cap, the filler cap. So I have that here. I just got a new pack of them in. I buy them in 10 packs. That way I have extras. They're only, a buck a piece or something like that. So they're not expensive, but they last a long time. But I like to rebuild lanterns, so I like to have extra parts on hand. So I burned the old one out, and in a previous video I showed how I did that. And so if you want to go back and look, you can find that. But it's just, you just take the little rubber seal, and you can see it just goes into that little groove around that brass part there and just pushes down in. So it's easy to install. It's not hard. If you can see, I'm just kind of using my fingernails to push it down in there and make sure it's flat like that. And you can see that now it's got the rubber seal in there. So then it gets put into, this is the actual cap itself. It puts in there. Well, actually, you could put the seal on, or the brass insert on there about like that. And you put the cap on, you can screw it down tight. And that'll also help seat that. Get it nice and tight on there. And then I'll take the screw that connects the two pieces together, and we will screw that together. Okay, now that's all one piece. So I can take it off of there, and that's done. That's ready to use. There's nothing else to that. You can hear it loose in there. I'm not sure why the design is that way, but that's the way it is. I think it's so that when you unscrew it, the original thought was that that piece will pop up and it'll release the pressure without blowing the cap off. So I think that was the original reason behind it. So now the next thing I got to do is I need to put the check valve back down in there. I don't know if you can see down in there real good, but the check valve goes down in here. That's where the pump goes. And I wanted to show you a couple things about this check valve. There are several different types that Coleman used, and this is the original, like old school. This is like from the 30s, and it is multiple pieces, and inside of here there is a little piece of cork that seals. Like the pressure you're pumping, it goes down through that hole, and then there's a spring in there that pushes a cork seal up against that hole so it won't let pressure from in the tank come back out. Okay, so this was the original design, and then they switched up to a style that looks like this. And inside of there's a metal ball bearing. I know it's hard to see, but there's a little metal ball bearing in there, and it basically works the same way. You pump pressure down through that hole, and the ball bearing will force back up and keep the pressure from coming back out. You can go in, but not out. It's like a one-way valve. And the newest iteration of the check valve is this style right here. And it has the same kind of thing. There's a ball bearing in there. You can hear it jiggling in there, or so you kind of see it in there too. There's a little ball bearing in there, and it has a shut off. I don't have one handy, but anyway, so this is the newest style. This is the one they probably still use today. This was kind of in the 40s, maybe late 30s, early 40s, when they got rid of the one like this. So I wanted to take this apart and show you what's inside of it, because I replaced the cork with a little neoprene piece of rubber, a fuel resistant piece of rubber. I don't know if it's neoprene, but I think that's what it is. But it's fuel resistant. So I'll take this apart here to show you what I did. Okay, so there's that little bitty part there. And then here's this little bitty spring right there. And then inside of that is this piece here. And you can see that piece of rubber on the end. The original piece of that was cork. And I have it here, and I'll show you the reason I replaced it. So I bought 2 of those little pieces of rubber just in case I ever had to replace another one because they were pennies. It wasn't expensive, so I did that. But this is the original piece of cork. I just saved it so I could show you. And I don't know if you can see it really good, but you see the little indentation on there? That's from the hole. It was pushed around the hole in there for so many years and not used that it actually crushed the cork. So I didn't think it would seal very good. And you don't want the fuel air mixture to come out of this hole. You don't want it to come out of there because it could catch fire. So you need that positive shut off there so it just nothing leaks out. So I replaced it with a little rubber piece, and then I have another one there, a spare one. So this check valve has been refurbished. Where did I put that little piece? Uh-oh. I will be editing this part out because if I put it back in there, maybe I won't edit it out. I did stick it back down in here just so I wouldn't lose it. So you got that little piece there with the rubber on it, goes in there. Then the spring goes around it. And then this piece right here compresses the spring and gets tightened on there like that. I don't have the correct size wrench, so I have to use this. And it doesn't have to be super tight, but tight enough where it's not going to come loose. So that's the check valve. And also one thing about this check valve is I can't use my check valve removal and installation tool that I have for that, which is this piece right here. How this works is you have this threaded rod here, okay, and that threaded rod, will thread down into here. Well, first of all, you see how it's got like the notches for a straight blade screwdriver on there? So that threaded rod will thread down in there, thread it a little way, then you push it onto the little teeth there, like that, okay? Then you come to this end and you tighten this up, get it nice and snug. So now this won't slip out of there because this is brass and this is steel. Screwdriver would be steel, so if I just stuck a screwdriver in there and tried to turn it out, I could probably tear this up. You get little pieces of brass down in your check valve and it would never seal. But that's what this tool is for installing these check valves and removing them because they're hard to remove. And it's got a piece up here you can put a wrench on there to turn it so that's how you get it out. Well, I don't have that option with this check valve. I have to use a big screwdriver, and I've got a pretty big screwdriver. I thought I had it over here, but I don't, but it's right here. I will grab it. Got a nice big wide blade on it, and it's nice and long so I can get it down in there. So I'm gonna drop this down in. Just gonna, there we go, drop it down in there, and then I will tighten it up. There we go. You probably heard my shoulder pop there. I don't know, about 2 years ago I had rotator cuff surgery and it still pops on me every now and then. But I think that's tight enough in there. We'll put the pump in here in just a minute and we'll check and see if it'll build pressure. All right, so now the check valve is installed inside of there. I got the cap, I got the check valve. So our next step will be the valve, but I have to do a little work to the valve too before I can put it in. So I want to show you that because this is the valve stem, okay? And it has a graphite packing goes around here to keep fuel from leaking out. So I had to buy new of that, and that's one thing I had to order and I was waiting on. So this nut is what goes on this piece here like that. Then y'all put the graphite packing on there, and then there's a little kind of a washer that goes on there that's one directional. You have to make sure it's facing the right way. It's concave on one side. It's got a little angle in it, and then it's flat on the other side, and you want the flat part facing the seal so that when you tighten this nut down, it squishes that graphite, squeezes it out onto the threads of here, and it squeezes it around this shaft so that no fuel or air can leak out. So this is what they send the little graphite packing in. You order this from old Coleman parts. That's where I get all my stuff, and it's the correct size. There's 2 different sizes, I do believe. There's only 2 different sizes, but I ordered 2 of them, so I have a spare because it's always good to have spare parts. That way, if I need to rebuild another lantern, I don't have to wait to get it. So this is the graphite packing. Oh, both of them came out. There we go. So that's what it looks like. It's just a little ring of graphite that will compress. So we're going to put it around there and down into that nut, just like that. Okay, now comes the other part. I had that sitting out. Where did I put it? Man, I had all my parts sitting here where I knew where they were, and now I can't find it. Here it is, right here. Okay. So I'll show you this. I don't know if you're going to be able to see it, but this is a little bitty washer, right? And it's got some thickness to it, but on one side of it, I don't know if you can see it, but that's got a bevel on the inside, and the other side is flat. So you want the flat going towards the graphite, like I said earlier. So there, you put it down on there like that. Okay, and you can see it there. And then to hold that in place, they just take a little piece of brass wire and they make a little ring out of it, and you put it around, and it goes into that little groove there, and you squeeze it around there. Well, you have to bend them a lot to get them out of there. So one of the things they sold on old Coleman parts was they sold replacement ones. So I bought a couple new ones. That way it's all new. Little retaining ring here. All right, so I'm going to have to spread it apart to get it back on there, but not a whole lot. So I'll take my little needle nose pliers here, open it up. Well, maybe I need to use 2 pair of needle nose. So I got a second pair here. We will open this up. Now maybe it'll slip over the top. Nope, gotta open it up a little more. Let me try a screwdriver here. Nope, that ain't gonna work either. I guess I'll have to just needle nose it again. Okay, so there we go. Now I know it's big enough. So I opened it up, and we're gonna put it around here. Heck, did I not have it big enough yet? Maybe I don't. Huh. So as you can see, I am amateur at this, and it's kind of trial and error. I mean, I know how it all works. I know what the pieces do, but I'm not a professional. I don't do this for a living. It's a hobby. There we go. I was always worried about bending it too far, and then I wouldn't be able to get it back round again around there to hold it in place. There we go. So now it's around there. I'll take my needle nose and squeeze it back round again. There we go. Nothing to it. All right. There it is. So see how that ring is kind of around right here in the middle? Okay, and that's what keeps that. Well, no, I need to compress that a little bit more. There we go. One more squeeze. There. Okay. So now this won't come off of here. Right? So that valve is ready to be, the valve wheel is ready to be installed into the valve, which is this piece right here. Okay. And I have cleaned this up as best I can. Didn't polish it. I'm not big on polishing stuff you're not going to see. This is all going to be underneath the frame rest, so you're not going to see any of it. So there's no need to put any real effort into sitting and shining it up. But it is clean. I did run it through the ultrasonic cleaner, so it cleaned it all out. And I did some steel wool on the parts that you're going to see that stick out the backside for the pricker lever, excuse me. And that's it. So this gets put in here, and it just screws in as far as you can screw it in, and then this goes on here. So that valve is closed right now. So I'm just going to hand tighten this, and I'll tighten it all with wrenches once I get it installed on here. So there's part of that valve, right? And this opens up. That's how you open it up and turn the gas on. That closes it. So something I guess I didn't really show you was on the inside. The end of that thing is kind of a point, right? The end of that the valve stem, excuse me, is pointed. And what that does is this is your fuel pickup tube. And it's got a teeny tiny hole in the bottom of it, okay? And inside of this goes this needle, okay? And it's pretty hefty. It's not like the pricker. It's a little thicker, a lot thicker than that. But it's got a spring on it right there on one end, and it's got this little smooth brass piece that's kind of rounded on the top. Okay, well that goes on in there like that, and if you look, if I can get the focus, see how that comes out the end there? When that shuts off the fuel, and when you open it up, that opens it up and lets fuel come through. So that pointed part of the end of that valve that I stuck in here, the valve stem, pushes against this and it pushes it down. So when I back that valve out, or valve wheel out, it lets this rise up and opens that hole. So I mean, that's how the valve works. Pretty simple process, but that goes in there in the end, and it just screws on there, and that's an 8mm, if I remember correctly. Yep, 8mm. So, and you just kind of give it a snug up, just like that. So if you look right now, the valve wheel is all the way in, so it's closed, and that little teeny tiny needle is sticking out of the end there. And if I open this up, you can see now it's gone. It's back down. When I turn it, it pops back out and closes that hole. So that's how it works. That's the entire valve assembly. The only thing else is you got right here is where the generator goes, and it's got the pricker that goes in and out, and it cleans the hole out of the end of that. I'll show you all that in a minute. If you look, that's the eccentric block moving up and down when you turn this, and that raises the needle inside the generator and pricks out the hole so that it's clean, so no carbon gets built up in it. Okay, so now this is ready to get installed into here. Okay, so to do that, I use red Loctite because it's permanent, and I don't ever plan on taking this apart again. It's never going to I'm never going to leave gasoline in it to varnish up the inside. I'll leave Coleman fuel in it, but when you have Coleman fuel in there, it won't rust because Coleman fuel, there's no water in it, so there's nothing that'll make it rust, and it doesn't turn into varnish like gasoline. So I'll never use anything but Coleman fuel in this, so I don't mind putting this in here permanent. The original stuff they had on there was shellac, and I can buy that same stuff right now. It's like Indian head shellac or something like that, but it's expensive, and I don't know how long a jar of it'll last. It's a big jar. It would have it my whole life. I wouldn't use that much because you just need a few drops. But I just don't want to spend the money on it, so I just use red Loctite. It's pretty cheap and does the job. So one other thing I have to think about as I'm doing this, before I put the red Loctite on there, I've made this mistake, and I don't get it clocked right. So I want to make sure that the valve is pointing in the right direction. So if you think about this as a clock, and you look at some of these back here, this one is not clocked right. You can tell because the valve is right by the pump. That's not correct. And if you look, these two are clocked 180 different. This one I've restored. This one I've restored. They're the way they're supposed to be. But I haven't done anything with this one, and I haven't done anything with this one, and they're not clocked correctly by having the valve pointed in the right way. Do you want it to point this way, or do you want it to point this way? So on a 242A, which, do I have one? Where'd it go? Here it is. There's one right here. You can't see it. It's off the screen, but it's supposed to be clocked, pointed like that. With this on the, I guess if you're looking at it, it's on the left. The pump's on the left when you do it. So we're going to remember that. I'm going to point it at you. And you know what? I can't use my vise. I wish I could, because I don't have the right inserts for a 242. It's the smallest fount they made, and I just don't have the right inserts. I haven't made them. I probably should, but I haven't yet. As many 242s as I mess with. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a couple drops of this red Loctite on here. And now I know which direction I have to clock it. So I'm just going to put some on the thread, just a few drops. Like I said, it doesn't take a lot. And as you spin it in there, it will go all the way around the threads and lock them in place. Okay, so there's that. So now we need to spin it down in. And I got to get it around one more time here. A little bit more. If I can go just a touch more. This is where I need my vise. There we go. If you look, that's clocked correctly, just the way it's supposed to be. And that's it. That's all there is to it, to putting that thing in. It's not very difficult. And it's plenty tight enough, and this red Loctite will seal that up good enough to where no fuel or anything will leak out of there. All right, next step. Next thing we'll do is we're going to put the pump in. So I have cleaned this pump up, and this is a guillotine style pump. This is different from other Coleman pumps. If you look, it's got a little bar there, and if you look at the hole in there, it's got little notches. So that's so when you pump it down in there, you give it a little turn and it won't pop out. Okay, well, and it doesn't have a hole in the middle. It doesn't have a screw tip on the end that screws into that check valve. And let me grab one real fast and show you. I wish I should have already had one ready, but I didn't. Let's see. Oh, wait. They're right here. Duh. Okay, so normally on the newer versions of these, this is what the pump looks like. Okay, it's got the hole in the end of it, and it's hollow, and there's a separate piece that goes down through here that screws into the end of this check valve. Okay, it screws into there and seals it up, and then this goes around that. Okay, it goes around the pump, and it slides up and down on it, and you twist it, and it'll lock that in. Okay, and that closes this off. So it has two types of stops. It has the check valve ball in here, plus it also has the little pointed piece. I can't remember what it's called, but it's a it screws down in here, and it's got a point on it, and it seals it. So you got two different seals. That's how they changed the design from this original one. But I want to keep this one original, so that's what I'm doing. So anyway, I'm going to oil this pump leather really fast with a little neat's foot oil. Here's my 100% pure neat's foot oil. It's like a leather conditioning oil. It's the best stuff for leather. So it doesn't take much. So I'm just going to dip a little bit of it down on the leather there. This leather was actually in pretty good shape. It wasn't dried out. Somebody took pretty good care of it. So I just got a little neat's foot oil on there. And now I'm going to put that into the hole here, like that. And then we're going to take that and line it up like that. Then there are two little bitty teeny tiny screws that hold that in place. I got two of these little screws. And one goes here. I know this video is getting a little long. I've been told by people that some of my videos need to be shorter, that I'm making all my videos are too long, but I just like to show you what I'm doing. I don't like to shorten them up if I can avoid it. I don't want to put out 10 2-minute videos. I'd rather put out one 15-minute video. So there's that one. Now let's do this one here. I'm getting them finger started first. They're tiny, so they're kind of hard. My fingers are all calloused up, so I don't have good feeling in my fingertips. So anyway, so there you go. So we'll screw that in like that. And now this pump will work. So I'm going to pump this up, and we're going to see if it holds pressure. Now I'm going to turn this on. We'll see if pressure comes out of there. Hear it? So it holds pressure. The valve works. All right, very good. I'm happy to see that. I'm going to tighten this up real fast, just so I don't forget and I don't get a leak out of there. I think it's a 9/16. Nope, it is a 1/2 inch. So it's tight. This has to be tight enough to seal everything out, but you still have to be able to turn it. So they say you get it tight like that, and that's a little hard to turn. We'll go just a touch tighter. Like that, and that's it. We'll run it through its range of motion there. A little squeak. I think that will, as fuel comes in through there, and it'll get rid of that squeak once it gets lubed up a little bit. Okay, so that's that. So we have a pump, we have a cap, we have a valve. The next step is the frame rest. And that's this piece right here. If you look on there, it says 242A, Coleman. What does it say over there? Model number 242A, and over here it has lighting instructions. And I shined this up as best I could. I used Mother's Mag and aluminum polish on it. Well, cleaned it really good first with some degreaser because there was some stuff on there. And my fingerprints are getting all over, but I'll wipe everything down once again when I'm done here. So the keyhole slot here goes over the valve. So the way you do this is you put the pricker lever through there first, like that. And then you kind of got to stretch it out to get it around that, like that. So there's the frame rest on there, like that. And if you look, the Coleman is on the side with the fuel cap, just like that. Okay, let me make it round again. I stretched it out so it wasn't quite round. There we go. All right, next step is the generator. Now, I was going to show you a little bit of how the generator works. And I'm not putting a new generator in here. I cleaned it. I just steel wooled the outside of it to get some of the built up carbon on there. And I don't mind the discoloration. It is a brass piece. If you look at the end there, it's brass. But it's discoloration from the heat because it's been used. So inside of here, there is a spring. And wrapped around that spring on this old one is asbestos. That's what they used to use. Now people say, oh, asbestos is so dangerous. And it is if you sand on it and you get it in the air. If asbestos becomes airborne, the little particles get in your lungs. They stay in your lungs forever, and that's bad. So if you keep it still, like if it's inside of here, it's not getting in the air. Asbestos is fireproof. So if it's hot as this wants to get, it's not going to burn the asbestos. It's not going to vaporize. It's not going to get in the air. So it's safe when it's encapsulated inside of here. So the spring and the asbestos, and in the middle of that spring is the pricker. And once again, these things are teeny tiny. And you can see it right there. It's really small. And on the end of it is a little bitty needle. See if I can get enough contrast with the back there. See that little bitty needle on there? And that cleans out the little bitty hole in the end of that. There's a teeny tiny hole. And it gets full of carbon really easy and stuff like that. So this hooks to the eccentric block and it moves up and down and it cleans that hole out in the end. So then the hole gets cleaned out every time you turn this lever over here, the pricker lever. So that cleans the hole out, the orifice in the end of this. So I took steel wool to this and it is very smooth. It might look like there's some carbon on it, discoloration, but it's real smooth. So, and that's what you want. So you don't want any restrictions of the airflow through here, because all the fuel and the air go through here. So what happens is the fuel and the air come through there, and the fuel still got a little it's still a little liquid. So the pressure's pumping the liquid fuel up through here. Well, it goes through this really hot tube, really hot, because these things get super, super hot, and it vaporizes the fuel in here. Well, then that vapor comes out of here, and then that lights in the lantern. So that, I mean, that's how they work. Pretty basic, I guess, but it's ingenious, I think, how they did it. So the way you connect this in, I turn the eccentric block up, so there's a little hole in there, and I take that little bitty part on the end of that, and I hook it into that hole. Ooh, it keeps wanting to turn sideways on me. So hook it in the hole, slide it down over, and then tighten the generator. I'm going to tighten the generator all the way up because if you guys remember from one of my videos, I had a lantern catch fire when I was camping because I didn't tighten this. When I did just what I just did there, and I put it all together, and yay, it's all done. Took it camping, lit it, fireball. So don't want to do that. So I'm going to tighten this up right here. That is a 7/16. So it doesn't have to be, once again, I don't have to torque it down. I just need it nice and snug because it's got a flare nut on there. So that flare nut just needs to seal. So that's it. So now the generator's installed, and you say, well, why didn't you wait till after you put the frame rest on? Well, or not the frame rest. Why didn't you wait till you put the burner frame on? Because it's easier to have that on there than it is to have this on there and try to finagle it up into place. So if you look, the generator is going to go right in here in that hole. So the fuel is going to go up through here, okay, and then it's going to mix with air coming in these tubes. It draws air in through these tubes. These are called the fuel air tubes. Draws air in that mixes with the fuel, and it comes out the burner here and then lights. And that's how that works. So I'll line this up with the hole. We're going to set it right down over the top, just like that, and there it is. And then there's just a spot for a nut right here. Now, I don't know if originally they had washers on that, but I bought a washer kit for a 200A, and the washer is the same size, and I think if you look, there's little scratch marks on the frame here, so I'm going to put a washer on there. I don't know if it's supposed to have one or not, but I think it can't hurt it. So it's just got a little washer, a little stainless steel washer. We'll put it on there just like that, and then I'll tighten it up. Okay, and I think that is a 7/16 also. Yep. Here, I'll do this. There we go. So I want to get this snug. If you tighten it too much, you'll squish out this and it'll flare out. And you can tell on some lanterns you'll look at, somebody's really cranked them down, and the frame rest here will just be all flared out, and it'll be spread out on the bottom because they cranked that down way too tight. But I think that looks pretty good. So there's that. Now, there's only a couple pieces left. I have my mica globe that I showed you guys when I originally got it. I bought it specifically for this lantern because 242As, some of them came with a straight globe like that instead of the bulge globe. And they came, some of them were glass, and they had mica also. And I like the mica. I think it looks really neat on this lantern. So I did that. I bought that. And here's the top. And one way you can tell that this is an original 242A top is it's the same color on the outside as it is the inside. When they went to the 242B and then C, the inside was a dark blue or black, and the outside was green. So this is from the 30s. I can't remember the date on this lantern. I don't remember. I haven't looked in a while. I told you on the last video what the date was. I'll look in a minute here. But anyway, so that fits on. If you look, there's little notches. I could put the bail on right now, but I choose that I'll just put this on and then I'll put the bail on. So that sits right on there. And here is the vent nut. And I know I've said this to you in the past, whenever you have a lantern like this, do not crank the vent nut down really tight. It's supposed to be loose because when you heat it up, when you run it, the metal expands when it gets real hot. And if you crank that down real tight right now when it's cold, the metal's going to expand and it's going to crack your porcelain in the top. You see a lot of lanterns like that. You look at them in the top, the vent, the porcelain's all cracked up right around the vent nut, and it's because people crank them down too tight. So I want it a little loose. And then we have the bail, and it's just spring steel, and there's little holes in the frame, the burner frame. Oh, what's going on there? Okay. There we go. Okay, everybody. So that is my 242A. It is complete. And I love it. I love this lantern. I love 242s. I think it's really neat. I don't know if I'm going to light this one, to be honest with you. This might just be for display, but we'll see. Maybe I'll get a wild hair one day and I'll light it because it's ready to go. It'll burn just fine, no problems. So, well, if you like my content, don't hesitate to like it or subscribe it. Share it with your friends. I have all the different social media platforms that are, TikTok, which you're probably watching this on. That's where most of my viewers are. I do YouTube. I do Facebook. I have an Instagram, and I also have my very own website, tinkeringwithbhav.com. It should be across the bottom of the screen here, and you can go there, and there's links to all my different social medias. My website is under construction. There's a few things on there, but I've got some ideas about how to change it and make it a little better, have a little more information, a little more pictures and videos of my different lanterns and stuff like that. So I am working on that. Just once again, got to get the time to do it all. So if you have any questions, post them in the comments. I'll gladly answer them. This is Tinkering with B-Hav. I'm B-Hav. Thanks for watching.